Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. Well, folks, there is another person who isn't Alan Dershowitz or Brian Basham who is pining for Ghislaine Maxwell to be released on bail. And that person is Jonna Spilbor from Newsmax. I know, it's shocking that a publication that has such esteemed authors such as Alan Dershowitz would have another lawyer who is pining that Ghislaine Maxwell get some special treatment and get let out on bail. I'm sure she's going to argue in this article that Ghislaine Maxwell is being treated unfairly because who she is. When in reality, if it was any of us who was sitting in that jail cell right now, even if we were offered bail, we wouldn't be able to make it. So I don't want to hear about how she's not getting fair treatment or how she should be out on bail when there are a lot of other people in this country who did a lot worse shit, who are sitting in jail, did a lot less worse shit than Ghislaine Maxwell, who are sitting in jail and rotting away right now with no chance at bail. Nobody's showing up with millions of dollars to make bond for them. Nobody, no hope. They have themselves a public defender. So, when we talk about special privileges, the people that are getting the special privileges are these famous people who end up getting out on bail. It's not the other way around. She's not getting a raw deal for who she is. She is being treated the way she should be treated, considering what she is accused of. And also, let's remember, all of these people that don't know much about this story are just, they're on a fishing expedition. They don't understand what's going on here. The charges that Maxwell is facing right now, the ones that are from 94 to 97, are most certainly not the only charges that she is going to face when all is said and done. Just take a look at Mr. Keith Raniere. Do you really think that Ghislaine Maxwell is going to get less than Keith Raniere? I certainly don't. She shouldn't anyway. So, until the time comes when she has had a trial and when she is sat down and she's been judged by a jury of her peers, then she should be in custody, in my opinion. Now, of course, look, I'm not a lawyer, right? All I'm saying is, if normal, average folks like you and I are stuck in prison or stuck in jail as we await trial, like there are countless number of Americans are right now, why should Ghislaine Maxwell be given any special treatment? Why should Ghislaine Maxwell be given bail just because she's super rich? It's just ludicrous. So let's dive into this rag over at Newsmax and see what sort of nonsense is being talked about. Headline: Release Ghislaine Maxwell on bail. Authored by Jonna Spilbor. Amid a fashionable backdrop of indictments of the rich and famous, the pretrial treatment of Ghislaine Maxwell is troubling on many levels. No, it's not. No, not at all. It's not. Remember, she skirted out on the non-prosecution agreement all them years ago. Why was she included in that if she wasn't guilty? And if you really think that there are not more indictments coming her way, well, Jonna Spilbor, you have not been paying attention. Maxwell, up until a rather precipitous arrest on July 2nd at her New Hampshire home on a number of charges filed earlier that week in the Southern District of New York, was perhaps best known for her relationship to, and with, financier, pedophile, turned convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. This sure sounds like a lady that has no idea what she's talking about. Or maybe she's looking to grab a gig on Ghislaine Maxwell's defense team. That might be what she's pining for here, huh? Because if she thinks that Ghislaine Maxwell is getting treated unfairly, then she should probably go and check out some of the inner city jails and see how some people without any money are being treated. Bail? Yeah, right. Despite waiving extradition to New York, oh, big deal, she waived extradition to New York. Oh my God, she should be given so many points for that. No, Absolutely not. She should have waived extradition. She knew she had no defense. No, she had an untenable position to defend. So she knew she had to waive extradition. It was only a matter of time. What was she going to do? Drag it out? Offering up a hefty bail package, well, there's the difference, okay? When you say she's not being treated fairly. Well, what's not fair is the fact that she has these resources still. That all of these resources, all of these accounts aren't frozen under RICO like they would be if she was a normal person. If she wasn't part of so-called polite society, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. This lady would already been stuck with RICO. Everybody she knows would have been hemmed up, and the government would have been laughing all the way, drinking their espressos. But since she's highly connected, since she has friends in high places for so long, since she was protected by that draconian non-prosecution agreement, and since she has lawyers who know about the loopholes and how to navigate the back room, she is, in fact, has a better chance of beating her charges than the average person. So I don't want to hear about how she's being treated unfairly. She is being treated the same way anybody else in that prison would be treated under the same circumstances. And facing charges alleged to have occurred as far back as 1994, Maxwell was ordered held without bond at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. She remains incarcerated there under unusually restrictive, if not punitive, conditions. That's lawyer speak for, we need a technicality and a loophole. It's not that she's innocent. It's just that she's being held in these conditions that are unseemly, that are unacceptable, that are violating her human rights. No, they're not. Where was Jonna Spilbor when El Chapo was in jail at the MCC? Where was Jonna Spilbor when insert any other major criminal was in one of these facilities? Was she out here pining for them to be out on bail? Was she pining for them not to sit in prison and sit in jail as she awaits her trial? I'm sure she wasn't. But like most people who really aren't hip to this case and want to interject and talk out of the side of their neck, she just makes herself look foolish. To act like Ghislaine Maxwell wasn't a threat to anybody, and to act like the survivors should have to go to sleep at night knowing that lady is on the loose, is just absurd. Absolutely absurd. What if it was your daughter, Jonna Spilbor? Serious question. How would you feel then? As a lawyer who has analyzed, written extensively about, and provided commentary on a national scale for many high-profile cases, oh yeah, well, in that case, we need to bow down to what you have to say. You're just, you've cornered the market, huh? Including those with serious sex crime components, Michael Jackson, Kobe Bryant, the Duke lacrosse case, Bill Cosby, and most recently, and Harvey Weinstein. This harsher-than-most handling of Maxwell's case immediately struck me as beyond odd. Well, that's because you're not reading between the lines. You're not seeing the picture as the giant puzzle that it is. These are Hold'em charges, Miss Spilbor. I would think that a seasoned lawyer who has covered all of these high-profile cases before would be all over that, would be able to see what's going on here, would be able to see that there's an end game. Do they use the word conspiracy if it's a crime of one? No, they don't. So while I'm sure Miss Spilbor is a fantastic lawyer, and I'm sure she knows her shit, right? I'm not going to sit here and act like I know the legal system better than her. That, I'm sure, is not the case. But when it comes to this specific situation that we're talking about here, I'm pretty sure that I'm more well-versed on the ins and outs than Miss Spilbor. In an era where we witness routinely a veritable parade of high-profile defendants marching into their arraignments with lawyers on their arms after breakfast and marching out with GPS monitors on their ankles before lunch, why is Miss Maxwell not being afforded the same constitutional deference as so many of her famous predecessors? Well, I'll tell you what, they shouldn't have been either. But what, we're just going to keep doing it? At what point do we stop? At what point do we say, all right, this is the end game. Sorry, you're the one holding the hot potato. We're going to be hard on you people from here on out. At what point does that occur? Or do we just keep letting these people steamroll us? Do we keep letting them shit all over the people they abuse? And do we continue to let them operate on a different tier of the playing field than the rest of us? I'm done with it. All right, Miss Spilbor? And I'm sorry that Ghislaine Maxwell is the one who ends up holding the bag here. I'm sorry for you, because for me, from where I'm sitting and from my perspective, I have had enough of these people doing exactly what you're talking about, marching out with their ankle monitors, having their lattes, laughing at society. Oh, I'm going to go home and swim in my money like Scrooge McDuck anyway. F the rest of you. I'm tired of it. At some point, society has to put their foot down and say enough is enough. And thankfully, Judge Allison Nathan decided enough was enough. It's a more than fair question. Her treatment in the legal arena thus far has been anything but equitable. I mean, though, has it really, though, been less than equitable? Has she been treated any less than any other person in society should be treated who is accused of such heinous crimes by so many different people? Why should we use the examples given of Weinstein and Cosby as the norm? That shouldn't be the norm. Everyone should be outraged by that as well. And this case here, this person, the crimes that she committed, is where I think people are saying enough is enough. Perhaps the most glaring anomaly in this case is the judge's decision to lock up Maxwell pre-trial with no opportunity for pre-trial release, as if her guilt is a foregone conclusion. Again, you have any idea, Miss Spilbor, what the court knows or what the prosecutors know, or perhaps just maybe, Judge Allison Nathan read all of the documents of all of the cases previously, went through them, and understands what sort of monster we're dealing with here. Did that ever strike you as something that might have occurred? I know as a lawyer, as a defense attorney, it's your job to defend bipedal serpents like this, but Miss Spilbor, come on. Do you really think anyone's buying this, that she's being treated any differently than anyone else would be? Sure, she might be being treated than those other famous people, but A, she's not famous, let's be real, and B, her crimes are absolutely heinous and they include children. Do we not draw the line there? A dangerous proposition for anyone who appreciates the presumption of innocence. I know I do. You should too. Look, she has the presumption of innocence. She's getting a trial. She's going to get a fair shake in front of a jury of her peers. That doesn't mean she should be released to A, maybe threaten these other the survivors that came forward against her. B, who knows, she might flee. I don't care about an ankle monitor. Give me an absolute break. Do you know how many people dip, duck, and dodge with ankle monitors on, cut them off, and blast out into the wind with a lot less resources than Ghislaine Maxwell has? At an initial bail hearing on July 14th, U.S. District Judge Allison Nathan ordered Maxwell jailed pending trial, stating the significant financial resources, international ties, and extraordinary capacity to avoid detection made the risk of flight simply too great to allow Maxwell to remain free, holding that no set of conditions could guarantee she wouldn't flee. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, right? But of course, Miss Spilbor has something to say. Wait, what? Pretrial release of high-profile defendants has been done repeatedly. It can be argued that the higher the profile, the lower the flight risk. No. Wrong. She is a foreign citizen, Miss Spilbor. Do you understand how easy it would be for her to skip out? All she has to do is sneak across the border. Then it's a wrap. What do you mean she's not a flight risk? What are you talking about? Do you think this is just some shrinking violet? No, we're talking about the co-boss, all right, of a criminal organization. Get that through your head. This wasn't just some lady who was making phone calls. Man, oh man, people are really missing the boat here. There are a lot of smart people who have interjected their opinions into this case, and while they might be smart in their avenue of study, when it comes to the facts in this case, they are lacking. On what planet would other equally famous defendants, who are allowed pretrial release, by the way, like Bill Cosby, American citizen, Kobe Bryant, American citizen, and Harvey Weinstein, American citizen, as well as Martha Stewart, Michael Flynn, American citizen, Paul Manafort, American citizen, Roger Stone, American citizen, Lori Loughlin, American citizen, and most recently, Steve Bannon, American citizen, be able to avoid detection had any of them decided to flee? No, they wouldn't have. They are famous. Do you understand what famous means? Up until recently, most people couldn't pick Ghislaine Maxwell out of a lineup. So what do you mean? Do you really think she has the star power of Bill Cosby? Stop it. Or Paul Manafort, whose face was plastered all over every single news agency for 5 months? Just stop it. It's absurd. A person who's on society's outrage meter can't go to a local diner without being detected. Well, that's fair. And, well, what do you want the public to do? Should the public just shut up and not pay attention to what the scoundrels are up to, not have conversations with each other like we're doing here? That's what you would want, right? That's what you always want when you're a lawyer. And that's why it was great when it was the legacy media who was in control of the whole thing, huh? Because you could control the narrative by applying pressure. Well, breaking news, that's impossible to do when you have a bunch of independent outlets reporting the case. Besides, we have the technology to tether defendants inside any jurisdiction. I've already covered this. It's bullshit, okay? No, we don't. All right, you might think you do, but you don't. You know how easy it is to get rid of one of these electronic monitoring devices? Happens all the time, folks. Ask anyone who works in law enforcement that you know. It's commonly done. Couple that with surrendering passports and signing over property and handing over enough cash to miss, regardless of your income bracket, and there is your frequently used pretrial release plan. See, that's the problem. And this lady Spilbor doesn't get it because she's part of so-called polite society. Part of the problem is that this is how you get out of jail, while me or you rot away. I don't want, let me be clear, okay? Let me be very clear, so maybe Miss Spilbor will understand. I do not want any of them, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, any of them, to get out of jail before their trials. Not one of them. The problem is the system. I have said it 1,000,000 times, Miss Spilbor. You're willing to operate within the system. Me? I want to shatter it and see it remade. Not only has the judge essentially locked Maxwell up, intending to keep her there until trial, but is also putting a brick wall between Maxwell and her absolute right to access discovery, confront her accusers, and prepare for a defense. Wrong. All right? There's a lot of people in prison right now and in jail preparing their defenses, okay? Because she's rich, because she's so-called famous, that doesn't give her any special rights to get out. Sorry. These actions from the bench are in stark contrast to recent actions by other members of the judiciary. District Judge Annalisa Torres freed President Trump's former chief strategist, Steve Bannon, at his August arraignment on $5 million bond. I don't care what you think about Steve Bannon. He's not charged with human trafficking or abusing children or has who knows how many sealed indictments around those kind of crimes. All right? Like Ghislaine Maxwell does. Steve Bannon's a scumbag in his own right, no doubt about it. And if they wanted to hold him without bail, I would have been totally fine with that too. But to run around here and act like to compare Steve Bannon and Ghislaine Maxwell as far as these specific crimes, is there a more apples and oranges debate to have? Steve Bannon is basically accused of funneling some money laundering, basically, right? Stealing some money from the Wall Project or whatever the hell they had going on. To be honest with you, I'm not even following that garbage. I don't care. But I will tell you this. It is nowhere near as heinous as child sex crimes, child sex abuse, money laundering, and power brokering on the highest levels. This right is not merely Maxwell's. It's a right unto all Americans. Yeah, if you have the money. Again, who has $5 million? You? Me? Probably not. I know I don't. So what do you mean it's the right to all Americans? No, it's only a right to the Americans who can afford to pay your $2,000 an hour salary, Miss Spilbor. In a case where the central allegations are nearly 3 decades old and supported, if at all, by untested credibility of the accusers themselves, so you can see where Spilbor is coming from here. She is challenging the credibility of the survivors right off the bat, and she is saying that, it's just these charges from 94, showing her ignorance in this regard. She doesn't understand, obviously, that more is coming down the pipe. And when it does, I'll be here to do a ha-ha dance, Miss Spilbor. Denying Maxwell any meaningful pretrial opportunity to push back against these accusations and the motivations behind them, which will necessarily include, like it or not, questioning the veracity of those who have provided evidence to be used against her, represents a complete deprivation of due process. She's had decades to prepare herself for this. She should have went to prison in 2007, 2008, 2009 when Epstein did. This is just a righting of wrongs, Miss Spilbor. Add to that the fact that numerous women, possibly including one or more of the anonymous accusers in the criminal case, although your guess is as good as Maxwell's, have procured very visible opportunities with Netflix and other media outlets to publicly tell their stories, while prosecutors simultaneously implore the judge to keep the accusers' identities under wraps, renders the decisions made from the bench thus far not merely detrimental, but absurd. No, it's not absurd, okay? The girls who have come out and spoke out against Ghislaine Maxwell and have told their stories, they're all on record. What are you even talking about here? More technicalities. Have you noticed that she hasn't even begun to say that Ghislaine Maxwell is innocent? Because that's not the case. It's about technicalities, loopholes, and what should be. A person's pretrial treatment should not be an impediment to preparing a defense. It's not. She should, listen to me clearly, be able to defend herself from there with her bazillion-dollar team of lawyers very well. What is she actually adding to it, huh? She can talk to her lawyers on the phone. I guess she has a computer in that jail cell too. So what do you mean? What doesn't she have? What is the difference? She can sit on her couch and watch Days of Our Lives? Is that what you're pining for? No, she's where she should be. A person's right to a fair trial and to ensure one's fundamental liberties must be every judge's primary concern, and not the least. Judge Nathan appears determined to place spike strips between Maxwell, her ability to prepare a defense, and the duty of her legal team to zealously advocate for her. We must keep in mind an arrest marks the beginning, not the end in the judicial process. Ghislaine Maxwell is not guilty, not yet anyway. And have we considered maybe not ever? I mean, really? It's a joke. And it's funny to me that her office is in Hudson Valley. Doesn't shock me, Westchester. Does not shock me, Westchester, New York. She'd be lurking around there with the other weirdos. Give me a break with these people in Westchester already. I've had enough. I'm up to my ears with these people. All right, so there's Miss Spilbor's defense, and she has not offered anything new. While I agree that every person has the fundamental right to a fair trial, I have been on the record saying that from the beginning. I also believe that if the common American is sitting in jail right now, waiting on their court-appointed attorney to show up to help them try and plead to 20 years instead of going away for 45 years over a drug charge, well then Ghislaine Maxwell, with her $1 billion in the bank that should have been seized already, can most certainly formulate a defense, can't she? And if not, well, why should I care about that? That sounds like a Ghislaine Maxwell problem, not an R problem. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, everybody, I'll be back later on.